We're back as we pay tribute to the great heavyweight boxing champion, Muhammad Ali. We're going to talk about his language and he uses language, but before that, let's listen to the man himself.
They say that actually, every time that I enter the ring, in a way, I'm going to war. They say to me daily, you are a prize fighter, what's the difference? And I like to say to those critics of the press and to the others that there's one hell of a lot of difference in fighting in the ring and going to war in Vietnam. My intention is to box to win a clean fight, but in war, the intention is to kill, 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 and continue killing innocent people.
Joe, I don't think I've ever seen an athlete talk so simply about complicated matters and convince an audience like that.
I have. I mean, that's, this,
Well,
you know,
it's
what,
quite
now,
incredible.
let me tell you what bothers me about what we're doing here. Athletes, because we don't put attention, Jim Brown talked
Okay,
like,
so,
wait,
no,
but wait a minute. Jim Brown talked like that. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar talked like that.
That's right.
The problem is, the media doesn't focus on these people.
Yeah, but he was the greatest fighter in the world that people were focusing
and Jim Brown was the greatest football player in the world.
Right.
And Kareem Abdul was the greatest. And by the way, I'll tell you someone else who talked like that. And that was Arthur Ashe.
Right.
He talked like that.
You're right.
See, the reality is that we're using this moment, and I hope what we better learn is expand your vision. Expand your vision globally. What made Ali great was he expanded his vision globally. Let me tell you, when he said what he said, I was probably 16 years old, didn't know where Vietnam was, but within 2 years, many of the young men in my class were fighting and dying in Vietnam. And it was Muhammad Ali more than anything else. And remember now, it was the Jim Browns, the Kareem Abdul-Jabbars, and other folk who came to his aid when everyone else turned on him. So what I'm trying to say to you in all honesty and in deep sincerity is that in the black community, we know people talk like that because we read Jet magazine and Ebony magazine and read Ishmael's books. Most of the world didn't.
So he was a world champion. He was on the world stage. He was perhaps given a wider microphone, a wider audience than most. Tariq, do you think he used that language that Joe was talking about in terms of, which was relevant to the black community, to find a global voice?
No, I think he was just bringing the black community to the globe. I think, you have Paul Robeson.
Yeah.
I played football 15 years of my life. I went to school for a full football
A huge
scholarship.
hero, yeah.
I'm a writer and activist. So I think it's important to note that although we have these athletic talents, we also have a struggle. We also have some victories and triumph that we also discuss as well. We all also have joy. We're also extremely eloquent. As he said, sometimes that doesn't make it to the stage. I think it would be apropos for me to share this with you all. Is that okay?
Go ahead.
A great was lost, yet a legend was gained. It'll take 1,000-odd years to see a fighter the same. In 1,000-odd years, time will attest to the slugger from Louisville who conquered the best. Too black, too bold, too witty to lose, an American paradox, contrary to blues. Was he poet, warrior, or revolutionary king, or only dizzying hooks and domination in rings? Was he philosopher, savant, servant, or preacher, or only gifted with gab and charismatic fever? In 1,000-odd years, history will tremble to speak of the people's champ who was poetry. Forever truth to power for what he believed. Not in 1,000-odd years will we get an Ali. No, not in 1,000-odd years will we get an Ali. He shook up the world.
Well, thanks for sharing us with that. Ishmael, your reaction to Tariq's poem?
He's absolutely correct. Joe Louis and Sugar Ray Robinson beat up 2 armed military policemen in a segregated white bus station because they refused to respect them. The policeman approached Joe Louis, tapped his ribs with a nightstick, and called him by the N-word. Next thing I know, Sugar Ray Robinson wrestled him to the floor, and Joe Louis was punching out the other guy, and somebody stopped the fight by saying, "That's Joe Louis." Joe Louis did a lot to improve the situation of black soldiers in the segregated army. Sonny Liston was called by the N-word by a policeman. Next thing I know, the policeman was in a trash can. He was hounded all of his life by the police because of that incident. Henry Armstrong beat up 2 cops who disrespected him. Henry Armstrong not only wrote poetry, but received a prize for writing poetry.
And Ali?
Ali repeated almost word for word what he had read in Message to the Black Man by Elijah Muhammad. As a matter of fact, when he defeated Floyd Patterson, he recommended that he read the book. So a lot of the political speeches made by Muhammad Ali at that time when he belonged to the Nation of Islam were taken from that book or from Muhammad Speaks editorials.
You know, one of the things I said on my radio show, and I said Muhammad Ali was Kunta Kinte before we knew Kunta Kinte.
The lead character in the hit.
Now, and look.
We should just explain
that Ernie Terrell whipping that he gave, the refusal of the world to call him by what I'm going to be defined. I am Muhammad Ali. I'm no longer this slave name. And, you know, something we've got, it's very interesting. We've talked about Paul Robeson. We've talked about all of these great athletes that we've had. And most of it does not get taught in school. Most of it is not part of our culture. And then wait a minute, and next month, another Tarzan movie is going to come out. Now, you tell me why in the hell every generation since the turn of the century, we've had Tarzan movies, but we can't learn about Paul Robeson. We can't learn about these other great people that the 3 of us are talking about.
I'm so glad you mentioned Tarzan, because I think they stopped making the movies now because they're so silly. White man conquering the jungle in Africa and being able to talk to the animals and no one else. But
well, that came about because of European attempts to conquer conquer Africa, and that was what Tarzan represented.
To my point, Muhammad Ali obviously enjoyed being in then Zaire for the Rumble in the Jungle fight. He was part of a growing consciousness, of course, as well in the 60s with Pan-Africanism. What do you think he got out of that in terms of being connected to Africa?
It's not what he got out of it. It's what he brought to it.
Right. So tell me about that.
That's the wrong question. It's what he brought to it. Most people...
And what did he bring to that?
What he brought to it was a consciousness. What he brought to it was what was going on at that time. What he brought to it was the CIA and its interference in a country that, by the way, the most natural resource it had was in competition with the Soviets and the West because they needed the material that built what? Nuclear weapons.
Yeah, uranium, yeah.
Yes.
So he informed that movement, is what you're saying?
What he made us, he brought that to us. He understood that. And while we were being entertained by Western media, the rumble in the jungle, the reality is that those of us who were conscious at that time understood what the international politics was all about, because most people didn't even know the history of that country.
Mobutu being overthrown by the CIA.
Absolutely.
Tariq, final word, because we're running out of time. I could go on for another hour. But
No, I would definitely say, to piggyback off what he said, is that, you know, one of the first rules in activism is intersectionality. And for him to go with the struggles that are going on in America, to go to Zaire and have those conversations with the prominent people there, right. It put the international Pan-African struggle on world view. So when you have people in Cuba start to look over and say, hey, what's going on over there? When you have people in Angola start to say, what's going on over in America? When you have people in Harlem start to look at Zaire and say, hey, we have identical struggles. How can we work together? And I think he represented a hub for that through the vessel of his fists.
And I should have said it was Patrice Lumumba who was overthrown, not Mobutu, who of course replaced him. Final word?
Who was killed.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, fascinating discussion. I wish we could go on for another half hour, but unfortunately that's all we have time for. I want to thank you, all three of you, for joining. It's been a very vigorous discussion in a week of platitudes, some of them, so I really appreciate it.